The San Diego Union Tribune, Jeff Sanders put out a list of internal and external options for the next manager of the Padres. Before I get to this list, I just want to give my names right off the bat, and then I'll react to some of this because I haven't seen this article yet. But for me, the internal candidates that the Padres are going to talk to, Ruben Niebla, pitching coach, they've got to talk to him. He wants to manage in the future. I think he will manage in the future. When we're talking about like someone who knows what the clubhouse is, he's in there every day. And if you think that he didn't help Mike Shildt make decisions, then I don't know what you're talking about. Like the guy was right there. Every game, he's right there. So maybe this is a way to, it definitely would be a way. Because if Ruben wants to manage in the future, what if the Rockies come calling? What if another team comes calling and says, yeah, we're going to make you the manager. We'll make you our skipper. If the Padres do that, then you get to keep Ruben Niebla. If you love Ruben Niebla and what he does for the pitching staff, and you bring in some other guys or the same guys that you really trust offensively and you let them run the offense, and what? Ruben knows nothing about offense? He doesn't know about game planning? Of course he does. I think he can make those decisions. So, yeah, you talk to Ruben Niebla. You talk to Brian Esposito. He is the bench coach essentially right now. And he took over whenever Schulte got ejected. I think you talk to him. I'm not going to act like I know a ton about Brian Esposito, but you talk to him because he's in the organization right now. He's on the coaching staff, and he was one of Mike Schildt's right-hand men, if that makes sense, in the dugout. And if you want someone internally that's been in there that can kind of just step in and he knows what the clubhouse was like, he knows what players like to do pregame and communication-wise and all that stuff, how spring trainings run, because the bench coach does a lot of that, usually, is what I've heard. Then Brian Esposito could be that option. That's the coaching staff. Then there's the people that are the special assistants to AJ Preller or Eric Grutner, which would be interesting. And one of those is Mark Loretta, who has wanted to manage before, and I don't think he got the managerial interview with the Padres in previous managerial cycles. Whether that was the Andy Green one, the Jace Tingler one, Bob Melvin and Mike Shildt felt like that was who AJ wanted. So it was just, that's just what was going to happen. Especially after Tingler, they were not going to bring in an inexperienced guy. Like Bob Melvin, at the time, that was a great hire. Took him to the NLCS. But Mark Loretta is someone that I think because he's there internally, you talk to, former big leaguer. He was a coach on the Chicago Cubs staff. Let's not forget that. Short, but he was. The only thing there is like, what is Grutner and Preller's relationship? I don't think it's that great, but that's total speculation. That's total guessing on my part. Would AJ be like, yeah, this guy reports to Eric Grutner. I don't think I want to make him the manager of the team. He wasn't one of my guys. He's one of Grutner's guys. Now, one of AJ's guys is AJ Ellis, who obviously is seen as a future manager. And this is a guy like Clayton Kershaw. That was his personal catcher. And Kershaw has thought the same thing, that AJ Ellis is going to be a manager in the future. And so, yeah, you talk to AJ Ellis. He's in your organization. And I would think that the Padres are kind of like they have him there to obviously help, but also while he's there, he can learn some things too about communication-wise with AJ. He's probably down on the field, a little bit. Probably in the clubhouse a little bit. Don't know, but I would think so. So you talk to him. And in terms of credibility in the clubhouse, you would get the credibility with AJ Ellis. Former big leaguer. Mike Shildt didn't even manage in the big leagues, and he got credibility with those players, and the players loved him. So, like AJ Ellis catching big playoff games, being on a contender, being in a market that there's pressure to win. He has that. Scott Service, who I know it may not be the best look because he leaves or he gets canned, whatever happened there at the Mariners. And look what the Mariners do. They're in the freaking ALCS and they're 2 wins away from the World Series. But maybe Scott Service learned some things there. And him being with the Padres here, could this be a Mike Schilt 2.0 situation where they brought in Scott Service because they were like, maybe he could be the next manager of the team. He could get to know the organization and have a head start there so it can be a better transition into being the manager than if we just hired this guy and he wasn't in the organization, didn't know about the communication with AJ Preller, didn't know about, some of the players, stuff that probably a lot of stuff that we don't even know about that goes on when they're one of these assistants. But yeah, Scott Service, former manager, like you should talk to him and they will talk to him. I'd be surprised if they would not. So what I got there, Niebla, Loretta, AJ Ellis, Scott Service, Brian Esposito. And then the two that I'm like, you have to give them a call. David Ross is one of them, former Cubs manager. I think how that situation happened was pretty crappy, to be quite honest, where the Cubs bring Craig Counsell in from the Brewers, pay him a ton of money, and it was like, yeah, David Ross, all right, see ya, you're gone. And it wasn't necessarily because David Ross wasn't the guy. Like he wasn't like he was a terrible manager. Like, no, it was Craig Counsell was willing to come to the Cubs and the Cubs were willing to pay him a ton of money. And they were like, yeah, Craig Counsell's the better option, so screw you, David Ross. After the guy, what he did with the 2016 World Series and all, like, he's loved in Chicago. So I would talk to David Ross. I think he wants to get back into it. Former catcher. I could totally see him working out a second time after learning some things with the Cubs. And again, it didn't seem like he was a terrible manager. It was Craig Counsell's available, and we can take him away from the Brewers. Let's do that. It's funny, though, that they get whooped by the Brewers in the NLDS this year. But anyway. So David Ross is one. The other is Boch. Bruce Bochy, you have to give him a call. I know he's up there in age, but this is a guy that obviously has managed the Padres before. He didn't win the World Series, but he got him there. He's 70 years old. So there's obviously going to be the questions about, can he do this health-wise, right? But as long as he can do it health-wise, I mean, you're trying to win right now. Why would you bring in someone that you don't know if it's going to work? Bruce Bochy would work. Like, you're not going to... Now, AJ would really have to let Boch manage. Like, you're not... Boch, you bring Boch in, Boch is managing the team. But it seems like that's what happened with Schilt, is that they let Schilt have definitely more of a say than previous managers on the lineup and not roster decisions, in-game decisions, stuff like that. Like, yeah, that was Schilt. I think we saw that starting Darvish in Game 3. Jake Peavy in the organization on MLB Network after was disagreeing with that decision. So, and he also had some interesting comments here today, which I will try to play here because that left me pretty confused. But I'll get to that here in a little bit. But Boch, like, the language, if I remember correctly, with the Texas Rangers was they mutually agreed to part ways. And then the Rangers hired Skip Schumacher. By the way, Skip would have gotten this job. Like, if Schilt knew, or if the Padres weren't in contention and Schilt, made this decision and had this news like right the day after the wild card. I forget the timing of the Rangers hiring Skip Schumacher, if it was during the wild card series or I could look that up. But like, if the timing lined up, Skip would have been the next manager of the Padres. Like, the dude loved the organization, lives in Orange County. Like, the guy would have. He was introduced 3 days ago as the manager. But when was this announced? I think Passan put it out, so I'll check him. October 3rd. Okay, so that was that during the wild card series? Maybe like shortly after. Yeah, October 2nd, I think, was the last game. So it was right there. So like if Schilt knew right then and there, maybe they could have prevented this. But Skip was in the Rangers organization. Um, so the timing, yeah, not great there. But going back to Boch, like mutually agreed to part ways. Rangers in a different spot than the Padres are in. They've already won a World Series as well. So I think they were more willing to be like, hey, we have Skip Schumacher here, someone that could do this for a decade, maybe. Like, let's maybe more. Let's mutually agree here to part ways, Boch. Thank you for what you did, but we're gonna go with Skip. And hopefully you understand. And Boch was like, yeah, fine. Because he probably looks at it as like, yeah, the Rangers, they're not a World Series contender right now, so yeah, that's fine. I won a World Series here. I'm a legend here forever. I'm a legend in San Francisco. The question I have with Boch is sure, like the mental stuff or the physical health, the mental health, like, is he able to do that? And it's not the Rockies, it's not the Marlins, it's not the Pirates, it's not another contending team. The Padres is different. He used to manage here. He still, I'm pretty sure, knows a lot of people in town and enjoys coming back to San Diego when he's been with San Francisco, when he was with Texas. So I think he would strongly consider it if AJ gave him the call. And I would think that AJ probably has already talked to Bochy about this. I'd be surprised if he hasn't. Like that probably should have been his first phone call was to Boch to see what he thought about this. For Bochy coming in, yeah, I'd be super excited about that because I want to win right now. This Manny Bogarts window, like I feel like 2024 was already their best shot to win it all, but I don't want to stop trying. So if Boch is going to manage for a couple seasons and that's it, like I still want to take that shot than to go with someone that maybe hasn't managed, or even if someone that has managed. But do you want to go with Boch, or do you want to go with who's a Hall of Fame manager, or do you want to go with someone that isn't? Right? And the City Connects hopefully will be some '98 type throwback sort of thing. So that would be great. But yeah, I mean, Boch is one of the best managers of all time. Like it's obvious. Yes, you got to give him that call. The only thing I think about is like he is a legend in San Francisco, and Bruce Bochy, not Bruce Bochy, Buster Posey is running things there. So does he want to go manage a team that is competing against Buster Posey? Like it's one thing to manage the Rangers; it's another thing to manage inside the division and manage the Padres against someone that you love, who is running the show in San Francisco, a division rival. I think Giants fans, like even if Boch would take the Padres job, you'd have to still love him if you're a Giants fan. Like he gave you 3 World Series, right? He led the team to 3 World Series championships. Um, but that would be a little bit weird. So we'll see. But yeah, possible internal candidates for me: Ruben, Mark Loretta, AJ Ellis, Scott Service, Brian Esposito. Got to give David Ross and Bruce Bochy a call. Um, Ron Washington, that's a no for me. It was a yes. I wanted him. The whole Jace Tingler thing. I wanted Ron Washington, not Jace Tingler. I was pissed when Jace Tingler got the job, and we see how that played out. But now he stepped away due to some health issues during the season with the Angels. Like, yeah, I'm good. If you can talk to Yadier Molina, yeah, of course you talk to him. But would he? I feel like he would wait for the Cardinals job, not go to the Padres. Um, Nick Hundley, I think he's with the Rangers in their organization. For me, though, I'm like, would you hire Nick Hundley or AJ Ellis? You'd probably just hire AJ Ellis because he's more familiar with your organization because he's been with you, you know. But Nick Hundley, former catcher, like maybe he would be a manager in the future. That's someone that comes to my head. Buck Showalter, like I joked about this on social media. Buck Showalter, Fernando Tatis Sr. For anyone that thought I was serious, you just don't know me. I'm joking. I like to have fun. Not everything is super serious. Fernando Tatis Sr. I'm not really totally joking about him coaching because like Nando is a huge part of this team, and it seems like Nando clicks and turns things around whenever he talks to his dad. So if he was there all the time, and his dad could help other players as well, Like he's helped Dirksen Profar in the past. Like he can help other players. This isn't just a Nando thing. I know how that would look in the organization and all that. I get that, but I don't think that's a stupid thought to have. Manager, yes, no, that's not happening. Buck Showalter, obviously that's not going to be happening. I know he was a former manager for Manny, but the whole Mets thing that happened there in the wild card series, like there's still people, a lot of people in that clubhouse. You're not Joe Musgrove's in the club. You're not hiring Buck Showalter. Joe Girardi, I think, is out there. I'm not super high on that. Um, who are some other guys? Brian Snitker, he stepped into an advisory role with the Braves. It's not like he was like fired, I don't think, from Atlanta. So I'm not even taking that in there as a possibility. And then other guys, like Rocco Baldelli. Do you talk to Rocco Baldelli, who got fired from the Twins? I think he knows what he's talking about. That whole twin situation wasn't the best, obviously, with them trading away as many guys as they did. So many injuries that Rocco had to deal with as the manager of the Twins. So I would like for the Padres to at least talk to Rocco. Wouldn't be the worst idea. There's nothing to lose to at least talk to these guys. Derek Shelton from the Pirates, I'm good. I'm just trying to think of some other name. Those are the names that stick out to me. Adrian Gonzalez, no. I saw that floated out there on social media today. I'm like, what are you talking about? No. Anyone else that comes to mind? Will Myers? Just kidding. Oz? Just kidding. But yeah, those are the candidates I'm thinking of. In the UT, let me go through these internal options. AJ Ellis, already talked about him. Brian Esposito, already talked about him. Mark Loretta, Ruben Niebla, Scott Service. External, Rocco Baldelli. Ryan Flaherty. No. If they hire Ryan Flaherty, I will be pissed off. No. I know that he was supposed to be like the next manager of the Padres, and then he went to the Cubs when I think they brought Shilton. No. Please do not hire Ryan Flaherty. I know Manny loves him, and he would have some credibility there in the clubhouse, but I'd like someone who's done it before. Nick Hundley gets brought up in here. Brandon Hyde is another name. That's interesting, but I don't think so with that Orioles team, and it was underwhelming there. David Ross is brought up. Albert Pujols is brought up, but it seems like he's the top candidate with the Angels. Would he rather manage the Angels or the Padres? I think you'd rather manage the Padres, so maybe Preller can swoop in there, but that is a risk because Albert, I know he knows what he's talking about. Like, don't get me wrong, but he also hasn't managed in the big leagues before. If you can talk to Yachty, if you can talk to Albert, you do it. But I don't know. Maybe he proves it in Anaheim first. Although that's kind of hard to prove it in Anaheim based on what they have. Joe Madden is another name that might get brought up. I'm good. I think I'll pass on that. I'm sorry. I just don't see AJ Preller and Joe Madden getting along very well. Seems like both guys would be like, nah, I know what I'm talking about. No, I know what I'm talking about. No, I know what I'm talking